We don't know how to say no, and we don't know how to say yes to people. Hello, my name is Natalie. I created the bullet when I was in a dark place. It is a philosophical podcast that talks about human integrity and freedom. Coming from a dark place, I am not asking why the world is as it is, so as to make sense of it. I find the society we live in very questionable. I do not like how the modern Western worldview is considered synonymous with objective truth. So when I ask why the world is as it is, I am asking so as to undermine the foundations of a world that, in my opinion, needs to be unsettled and rethought. A short note on crooked love. So, how did you feel listening to the You're Great meditation? Did you feel uncomfortable? Did you enjoy it? Was it fun? Did you recognize yourself in it? Did you empathize? With whom did you empathize? What moments made you feel uncomfortable? What moments made you laugh or cringe? How did it all leave you feeling? Because me personally, I felt all of that while writing and recording and editing this episode. This topic, the topic of unreturned love, of projection, of unclear boundaries, of self-hate, if you will, is very loaded, and it holds a lot of bad experiences, memories, pain, fear, and distrust for many, many people. So I think it's just natural that all kinds of feelings arise when we touch on it. At the root of it, I think, which is also what creates the weird tension that is present throughout the whole bad meditation, is a conflict of distance and closeness. Wanting closeness, but keeping a distance. Wanting to achieve closeness through distance. Keeping a distance by dressing it up as closeness, and so on and so on and so on. There are plenty of different manifestations of this conflict. And I would say that most people living in this world today know at least a couple of them firsthand. We don't know how to be close to other people. We don't know how to keep our boundaries. We don't know how to say no. And we don't know how to say yes to people. We don't know what we want, and we don't know how to have the kind of intimacy we'd like to have. We go the most complicated and indirect ways for love that are almost always destined to be leading to failure. Feeling like the direct way would be too demanding, compromising, off-putting, embarrassing, and that we only get a shot at our innermost wish if we're quote-unquote smart about it and sneak up to it strategically. And then when we fail with this approach, which is more likely to happen than success, we tend to blame this failure on us being dysfunctional and incapable of intimacy. We take it as proof that we can never be loved, close with someone, intimate. When in reality our failure is more so connected to the crooked ways we chose in our attempt to find the kind of intimacy we need. So let's look at these different manifestations of the closeness and distance conflict in more depth. What are examples for these crooked ways? Now, for the sake of making a clear point, I paint two rather harsh pictures. Keep in mind, though, that this is just to describe a certain dynamic, not to condemn the people that engage in those dynamics. So first off, there's the building a certain kind of relationship, but then hoping that it will eventually turn into what we actually want approach. This is close to what we were experiencing in the You're Great meditation. Here, people think that they cannot get the love, intimacy, or closeness they would like to experience, but hope that they might be able to gain or earn it through consistency, commitment, loyalty, good service, etc. Let's call this the friend zone end of the spectrum. The thing we have to understand, though, is there is no such thing as a friend zone. The whole concept is nothing but a projection of the unfulfilled need for what other relationship we actually wanted to gain onto the experience of rejection and failure. If someone doesn't want to be with us, be it their immediate emotional and physical response, or a more conscious, more rational choice. There's nothing we can or should do about it. Sure, people might change their mind in time, but that doesn't mean that we can or should actively try and make them change their mind. We have no right to be loved by them specifically. We cannot gain or earn someone's love, approval, interest. If we are in the supposed friend zone, sure, it can mean that the other person is using our ambitions to make them change their mind for their own interest, and then we somewhat are in a transactional situation. But that does not ever mean that there actually is a way to make them love us. It means that they're playing with us, and that we should take a step back, for our own as well as their well-being. Because in the worst cases, this whole dynamic might lead to very controlling behavior from our side, trying to emotionally or morally blackmail them into liking us, slut-shaming as punishment, and, very much the worst case, sexual violence, justifying it with our claim to what we've worked for or what was promised to us. The approach to the distance and closeness dilemma on the other side of the spectrum, however, is to try and build a very unclear and vague kind of relationship, where we can occasionally get our needs for closeness, love, and intimacy fulfilled, but where at the same time we withdraw from any commitment and deny the level of intimacy that is sometimes going on. Here we think that we're not going to be able to maintain the kind of relationship that would give us what we need, but we hope that we can maybe occasionally build a strong connection and create an intense moment where we will find some satisfaction, but that is without consequences. So in opposition to what I call the friend zone end of the spectrum, I would call this the fuck boy or fuck girl end of the spectrum. And what we have to understand here is we cannot have an intense moment and a strong connection with another person and expect that this will have no consequence. Especially not if we repeatedly do this. Yes, if in between we withdraw or even state that we don't want a relationship or are not looking for connection, that is sending a strong signal. But so is being intimate and letting ourselves have a deep-felt, loving moment with another person. So what we do if we go back and forth between intense love-making, intimacy, closeness, and then withdrawal, absence, and coldness, is sending very mixed messages. And it is unfair to then pull away and make the other person responsible for not understanding that the relationship is just casual, when they address the fact that the relationship has not been entirely casual. We need to own up to our responsibility for what has actually happened between them and us, if we don't want to engage in an increasingly confusing and frustrating dynamic where we will in the end be seen as the bad person who is untrustworthy and incapable of relationships. Because in the worst cases, this approach will lead to us using emotional manipulation to keep the person interested, power play for the sake of keeping the other person at distance but under control, gaslighting to cover up our mixed messaging, and victim blaming a la told you so, you should have known, to avoid being held responsible when we disappoint them. This is very frustrating, no? Well, yes. The way we grow up in this society, the ways we learn about love and are taught to love, are more often than not fucked up and sad, and can then easily lead to us searching for love, intimacy, closeness in our adulthood, in one or the other crooked way. And that's just normal. And regardless of what side of the spectrum you're on and how close you are to the extremes, the best thing you can do is to become aware of it and accept it. To accept it doesn't mean to blame yourself, nor does it mean to love what you did or what you're doing. It just means to acknowledge the dynamic and to be aware of what's going on. And from there, change is not necessarily easy, but definitely possible. It would, however, be much more easy to deal with these painful strategies and create change if we, as a society, would normalize 1. Being clear and upfront about what we want or don't want from another person. 2. Responding honestly to another person's request with what we want or don't want. 3. That it's okay to be unsure about what we want or don't want. That it's also okay to try and find that out together with another person. But that it's necessary to be honest about that and have the other person consent that they're willing to venture this uncertainty. 4. Saying no to uncertainty when we feel that we are not truly open for all possible outcomes, because this might lead to us pushing the other person, which is not cool either. 5. Calling out controlling and manipulative behavior, shaming, power play, emotional blackmailing, and gaslighting. They should be an absolute no-go in any kind of relationship. And even if we have feelings for the other person and are convinced that they're not doing it on purpose, if we feel that this is happening, we have to address it. And if no resolution can be found, leave the situation. 6. That it's okay to be a crooked fool for love or intimacy or closeness. Most of us are, unfortunately. And that doesn't mean that we're not worthy of what we want. It doesn't mean that we cannot find the right time, place, and person to be in a fitting kind of relationship with. And fitting meaning that we might get our chance to unfold, to make up, to heal, that we will find the right person or persons who will be glad to help us. The only way to find that, though, is to be honest, to ourselves and to others. All of that being said, I hope that you will be brave enough to want what you want and to go for it. Don't be ashamed of your deficiencies or blockages. Don't blame them or yourself for not finding the love and intimacy and closeness you seek. It's most probably the crooked ways you choose, and the fact that you hide your true intentions for whatever reason, that makes it hard for you to actually get what you want and what you need. So please, be bold, be open, be honest, and know that nothing is more graceful than to know and own your vulnerability. I hope you enjoyed listening. If you enjoyed listening to this podcast and would like to support it, please check out my Patreon page. That is patreon.com/thebulletbynatalievent. There you can find all information you might be interested in. And also feel free to leave me a comment or any personal thoughts you might have. They're all appreciated. I hope that the struggles you might be facing right now will turn into a bullet that will touch what needs to be touched, shatter what needs to be reassembled afresh, and implant the seed of change where freedom is needed. And I hope that you'll have a good week.